Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome back to the Same Old Arsenal podcast. Interlull special. Of course, it's boring international week this week. Unfortunately, the internationals have taken over, and what a load of rubbish that is. I hate international football except for when it's tournaments, but we've still got a podcast to run. So what we like to do is when there's an interlull like this, I like to have other podcasts come on and do a bit of a link-up. This week, our link-up is with Guns and Yellow Ribbons. You can see Fergus and Trev there, and Dan, who's become a regular guest on the Same Old Arsenal podcast, is also on that podcast as well. So obviously the reason why we're linking up with them is because Dan introduced me to the two boys, and here we are. So welcome, Fergus and Trev.
Hiya, Craig. How are you?
Thank you, Craig. How are you, mate?
I'm very well, mate. Thank you very much. An absolute pleasure to have you here. Also, you can see our boy Harry there. Harry, how are you, sir?
I'm good, thanks, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm not too sure we live, though. That's the only thing. Can you check that for me?
We are.
We are. Okay. Are we live on Twitter as well?
I'll have a look. We're definitely live on YouTube.
Okay. Any comments coming through? Because I think I've made a boo-boo here. Now, for the people who are listening in audio, you know I like to make boo-boos. I think it's because I'm going through Restream. I can't see my live comments. I think that's what's happened. But it's okay. I have my phone here. I'll fire it up there in a second. Harry, how are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Same here. Bored of the international break. Can't wait for it to pass by and get back to Premier League football.
Yes, I don't like it. I hate it. And wallowing around in the other corner, you can see his beautiful, cute face. Is Mike from the Gooners podcast. How are you, sir?
I am doing lovely. Thanks you for having me, Craig. It's a pleasure to take Lee's place tonight.
You might get yourself a full-time job, mate. If you're any good.
At least I might get myself a full pint.
True. Yeah, there's a few comments coming through there. Good evening to you all if you're watching live. Thanks for joining us. Welcome. Get your questions into the chat box. We'll be answering lots of questions this evening. But before all that good stuff, let's have a chat with Fergus and Trev. Fergus, you're the main man behind Guns and Yellow Ribbons, I believe. I hope.
Apparently so, yes.
Apparently so.
I hope.
Just tell us a bit about it, mate, and tell us how long you've been going.
We've been going since November. It'll be 3 years this November. We do an audio podcast in the main. We just started video, actually, leading up to this one. Trevor is one of our old-timers that we have on with his old school memories. Obviously,
Thanks,
we got Pot. Anytime. We got Potsy. There's about 7 or 8 of us, and we just rotate around. There's Manny, there's Scotty, and so on. And the concept is basically 4 guys in a bar having a chat about Arsenal. And that's as simple as that. It's not flash. It's not, it's just simple.
Exactly how it should be. Exactly like ours. Exactly like ours. Exactly how it should be. There's no egos here. Isn't that right, Harry?
That's right. No egos here. Different opinions, but no egos.
No egos, absolutely.
Definitely different opinions, Harry.
Trev, I forgot what I was going to say now. How long have you been on Guns and Ribbons, mate?
Well, I've not been from the start, mate. How long have I been on, Fergus?
About
6 months to a year. About a year, yeah. I'd never done anything like this before, boys, and got to know a couple of lads. They invited me on, and I love every minute of it. This is all new to me. I'm glad only my head and shoulders are showing on this screen because the bottom half is shaking a bit. But
I thought you could say they had no clothes on.
No need for that. There's no need for that here. Trev, no. Fergus says you're old school. How long have you supported Arsenal?
I lived in Ireland originally, so I wasn't really into Athlone Town was my team when I was a kid, and I moved to London in '88, and I met my wife, and she'd a young boy, and he was into Arsenal. So 93, I suppose, is my first real start following up Arsenal, and I became a season ticket holder about 10 years ago. But Trev, he's the long term. 1971 was your first game, wasn't it, Trev?
No, Fergus, 1970, mate. December 1970. My Uncle Pat took me. Had 60 pence seats in the West Stand lower tier.
Wow.
Against Wolves. We won 2-1. John Radford scored. Still got the tickets and the match programme. Yeah, still got them.
Well, Trev actually dug out. No, actually, it was Troy Reed. Is one of our listeners on Guns and Yellow Ribbons. He found this program on eBay. This is the very first Arsenal game I attended at Highbury, which was Arsenal versus Bradford on August 25th. In the my eyes are going. It was 1999-2000 season. So I've got the program for the very first game I went to.
Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. Mike, let's talk to you, mate. As we all know, Mike and Andy in America, every year Mike raises money for charity for cancer. So,
Not
Mike,
for
do you want to?
Cancer has enough power as it is. They don't need money as well. We raise it to fight cancer.
Do you want to talk us through it? And I shall put this auction house up while you're talking us through it. Go for it, mate.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Craig. And you guys from the start have been among our biggest supporters and spreading the word about it to your listeners and viewers. So I appreciate that. In addition to just being pretty silly, immature jackasses every week on the air, we try to do some good for the world. And my father passed away almost 10 years ago from leukemia, and virtually everybody I know has been touched by the disease or some other blood cancer or cancer in general. And so when we started doing the podcast and started catching on a little bit, we decided to try to use that for some good. And so we started Gooners versus Cancer, which is an organization that directly fundraises for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, which is, it's based here in the States, but it helps people worldwide trying to cure the diseases and supporting families who are suffering from it. So we've toyed around with a few different ways of raising funds, just kind of done general fundraising, and we raised about $4,500, about 3,000 pounds last year. But one note about that link: if you put the www in front of it, it won't work.
Okay.
It's actually
Don't put the www in front of it then. I'll take that off. There you go.
I'm sorry about that, but it's one of those weird internet things. But so we've done shirt auctions this summer when the team was on tour in the States. We did an auction for Alan Smith signed jerseys. Alan has become a friend of the podcast, and he's offered his help to raise money, and his 3 shirts that he auctioned over the summer raised $6,000. We had another Gooner Day of Giving here in the United States at all the different supporters clubs the day of the Liverpool game, and despite the result, we still raised another $5,000. So we're at $13,000 and counting for this year's campaign, which just blows my mind. We've reset our goal for 15, and the one thing that we still have left, which is what I think the best thing of them all, but is criminally undervisited, hopefully not after this podcast, is GoonerAuction.com. And we have for auction just some amazing experiences, prizes, tickets. And if you go to GoonerAuction.com, you do, I think, have to register for the page, which I apologize for. But on there, you can get, there's a set of club level tickets to any game this season that you choose. I've sat in them. They belong to Jack Stevenson, who's a great bloke. And they're just amazing. This is a picture from those seats. You can bid on those. You can bid on a clock watch from the She War shop. You can get from the team they donated. I'm pointing to it like you guys can see what I'm pointing to. You can get a Legends tour and an audio tour of the Emirates for $4.
What is this? Hang on a second.
I'm going to get to that, but let me get to the serious ones first. Piebury Corner has donated a £100 value dinner for 4 on a game day at Piebury Corner. There's just Tollington has suggested or donated tickets to any Europa League game. Then we've got kind of a little funnier things, which are just such a bargain yet nobody has done it yet.
Mike, has Lee donated one of his white T-shirts?
Lee's donated. He told us once that he would donate a couple of things, and I'm still waiting for them. But we've decided for him that stunts are more his style. So two things on the lead judges, and if people don't bid on these from this podcast, then I don't understand what's going on. He's going to read smutty passages of our selection from the 50 Shades generator. Now, if you've ever visited this website, go to this Twitter feed and have it generate a passage for you, and just imagine listening to that in Lee's voice. The other item that Lee has agreed to participate in that he probably doesn't remember agreeing to is he will read the starting 11 of your choice. Now, you make up the names. They can be made-up names. They can be names of international players they could just be Torella and Kadozi. But he will announce it, hopefully with the spirit that it was intended, and we'll send you these videos. And if you want to upload them to YouTube, but they're yours. And the bidding starts at $20. So come on, you want this stuff. But besides those things, there's art, there's jewelry, there's books, there's signed books from Amy Lawrence. Her new book comes out in a couple of weeks, the 89 book. I'm certainly going to be getting one, and I may have to bid for it to be signed. But there's great stuff on there, and then there's some stupid stuff on there, like a signed version of the bell from. Oh. So anyway, the point is, a lot of this stuff is cheaper right now on the auction than it would be if you bought it directly from the team, well, ticket-wise, tour-wise, art-wise, whatever the case may be. So we hope that you can have your support. Bidding on that stuff helps charity. If you win, we'll set you up to donate, and then we'll get the prizes out to you. But it's meant to be a little bit of fun and a little bit of serious fundraising, and it closes on 20 September. So we got about 10 days left to hit that website and help us get over 15 grand for this year.
Which cancer charities do you donate it to?
The primary beneficiary as of right now is the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
Okay.
Otherwise known as the LLS. They support blood cancers primarily. It very well may be as we get larger, and the hope is with the help of the team and our friends in the media and with Arsenal and of course fellow podcasters, that this is going to get really big over the next few years. And certainly the name Gooners versus Cancer implies more than just blood cancer. So our hope is to be able to raise money for multiple cancer charities. But at this point in our early years, it goes to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, which obviously has a great personal attachment for me.
Okay. Now, obviously, if you're listening to us on audio, you couldn't see the things that are up on screen, obviously. So what I'll do is, if you are listening to on audio, Spotify, iTunes, etc., I'll have the link to the website in the description for the podcast. So if you're listening on audio, you have a look at the description right now. You'll see the link, and go and check it out. A good cause.
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate it.
No problem, mate. You are very, very welcome. Right, let's get on to what we is it the Interlull again? Sorry to mention it again. Fergus, what do you make of the season so far?
It's not been too bad, actually. I was hoping for a better result against Liverpool. I was hoping, because Liverpool weren't on their top form, I was hoping we'd get a draw. The Newcastle game I thought was turgid, absolutely dreadful. The North London derby, thoroughly enjoyed. It was a draw. It would have been great to nick that win. And the Burnley game, Burnley came in and actually played against us. They're a big side, and we held on and got a victory there. So all in all, I'm reasonably pleased. I'm a little bit perplexed by some of Emery's substitutions and tactics and what he's doing, like the way he had Ceballos on in the first half again in the Liverpool game. His lineup and having Torreira and Xhaka in the North London derby, but overall, I would have to say it's what I expected.
What you expected, Trev? What about you, mate?
Oh, I'm happier with it than Fergus's, mate. To be honest. I said at the start of last season I was going to give Emery 2 full seasons. He had a lot of work to do, and I think he's making excellent progress. I was happy with Newcastle. We went to Newcastle, beaten 1-0. Yeah, it was a bit of a dour game, but they've had a decent result since, haven't they, Newcastle? So they're not that bad at all.
That wasn't a bad result at all, was it?
Yeah, no, it made my day. And then, of course, Burnley, Fergus is bang on with Burnley because They are a big side. They've got a big old English centre forward, and we've always struggled against that. But we got through in the end. Liverpool, we lost 3-1 at Liverpool, but when we've been beaten heavily at Liverpool in the last few years, I've always thought we didn't have hope in them games. We were outclassed. But this time, on another day, we get something, don't we? Because Pepe's had 2 chances. Aubameyang, if I'm honest, I thought he should have done better with a lob. So I come away from that game 3-1 loss. Yeah, another day we would have nicked something. And then Tottenham, Fergus said to me the other day, he said, "Was you happy with a draw?" And I said,
"Don't hang me out to dry."
Never be. No, I'm just saying. I said I'll never be happy with a draw against Tottenham. Never in a million years. Not,
No, especially. I suppose part of me was happy with the draw because we were 2-0 down, and I've just frozen there. Please don't screenshot that and put things in my mouth.
It's definitely a moment, isn't it?
It certainly is. 1 second.
He's thinking about Guendouzi.
That was practically orgasmic.
Mike has definitely screenshotted that. Mike, I expect by the end of this show.
I've already made a jib jab of it.
Can I qualify what Trev said there about a draw? I just said it would be good. Having a draw in a North London derby is always good when you live in swampland like I do out in Essex. So there's loads of Tottenham fans. So it's just good for conviviality among your friends.
There's nothing wrong with Essex. I'm from Essex.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I wasn't being scary, mate. Go easy, Fergus. You won't be coming back on, mate.
No, I'm only joking.
Harry, what's your talk on the season so far, mate?
Pretty much as expected, but I'm still, as you know, Craig. I've sort of been on the fence about Unai Emery from right at the very start, just because I can't get my head around the tinkering. I don't understand it. I don't. We talk about being tactically flexible, but there's a situation where you can overdo it, and I think that we have overdone it at times. And I'm not seeing the benefits from the tinkering because the results for me are still pretty much the same. We seem to be at the same level that we were at the start of last season, and I don't see any improvement. I don't see us any worse, but I don't see any improvement, and that's my concern. And if he gets to the end of another season without any improvement, then for me, maybe he's not the right guy. But in terms of what we've seen so far this season, it's as expected for me. I still think that we'll be in the hunt for the top 4. I still think we've got defensive issues. I still think we should be maybe looking to try and play to our strengths, which is, a possession-based game where we're attacking teams on the front foot. At times, it's been a little bit conservative. And I'm sure Emery will have his reasons for that. But for me at the moment, it's nothing great. It's just as I expected. And I hope to see things improve.
Mike,
I think what we need to improve is our defence, though, Harry. Going forward, sorry, I'm over talking on Mike now, but going forward, I think we're quite good. Midfield with Ceballos and so on, in there, we're quite strong. The weakness is definitely in defence.
But I think, there's no doubt. Yeah. I mean, surely in January, we strengthen that defence in January. Surely,
definitely.
You know what it is, Craig?
2 weeks.
Yeah, we strengthened the defence after the international break, don't we, boys? Didn't see any Bellerin.
I think the problem is, though, and don't get me wrong, I want to see Tierney come in, I want to see Bellerin come in, and Holding even as well. I want to see them all back in there. But this notion that a lot of Arsenal fans have at the moment that Bellerin and Tierney are going to come in and make us watertight defensively, that's just living in cuckoo land, in my opinion, because we were just as bad defensively last season with Bellerin in the side. He's great going forward.
Couldn't cross himself in church. In fairness, I've said it many a time. He can't cross a ball. He's got some speed. Defensively, he's weak. But everybody, since he's been gone out for so long, everybody is like going, "Oh, Bellerin, he'll fix everything." I don't agree.
There is a bit of absence.
I think what people are looking forward to, and I'd be one of them. I'm looking forward to a Bellerin Pepe link up. That's what that's what I'm looking forward to, and a Tierney Aubameyang link up down the left. If Emery or Lacazette or whoever it's going to be, we've all seen Kieran Tierney play for Celtic, and I know he's I sorry now if I'm going to offend anyone, but I think the Scottish League is absolute rubbish. The only game I ever watch is Rangers Celtic as a neutral because it's a derby and it gets a bit heated every now and then. But I think Kieran Tierney knows as well the challenge that he's accepted to come to the Premier League, and I'm glad he's done it, because he could have. People are saying about him he could have stayed and done 10 in a row and become a legend and stuff like this. But he's a Celtic legend anyway, whether he does 10 in a row anyway. But I mean, imagine wanting to stay at a club to win the league 10 times in a row. It just goes to tell me everything you want to know about that league. So if Tierney, I think. I'm really pleased that he's here, and I think that he's going to be better than Monreal. He's going to be better than Kolasinac. I'm pretty sure of that. But I just don't think at the moment down the wings we're doing as well as we should be doing, because we need players like Tierney and Bellerin on bombing on and linking up with the attackers. Mike, what you say about that?
Well, I do think, it's going to take a little bit of adjustment for, by 4 to 6 weeks from now, we're going to have 3 new defenders starting. And then either Socrates or Luiz probably switching back and forth depending on the situation. And it's going to take some time. Anyone who is expecting us to start, doing clean sheet after clean sheet, week after week, because we've switched our defenders to younger, better players right off the bat is... I just hope there's some patience, and the word patience around Arsenal supporters isn't used lightly, and nor is it very often found. But
what's that?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I just think we have to understand that there is a change in the guard. Of course, there's going to be another one coming in next year. Who knows whether he's ready or not for the prime time? But it's got to be better than it is now, though, and so I'm excited to see it. We've had 2 awful halves out of 8 so far this season, as far as I'm concerned. Not some that weren't so great, but the second half against Liverpool and you could say most of the first half against Tottenham, even though we dominated a lot of the play early on in the first half. So to come out of the first 4 with 7 out of 12 points probably is about right. Maybe would have liked 9. But there is a pretty flat track ahead of us. I was going to say except for the Monday game against United, but I probably include that game now. We should be able to go into the next international break top 4, top 3 at worst.
Be nice.
Yeah.
Let's bring this question in here. Please don't ask me to pronounce that. I'm not.
Speaking of which, did you see that Lee's in the chat now?
Is he? Is he? He must. Is he on the plane?
And Potsy.
And he's already taken.
Right. Are they there? Are they? Where are they? I'm looking at questions. You see. Look, please. Thanks for your question, but I'm not even going to try and attempt to pronounce that. Will Bellerin, Saliba, Holding, and Tierney be the 4 that bring us back to the glory days of the 90s? 1-0 to the Arsenal. Harry.
So hard to say. I mean, that's the hope, of course. But for me, Saliba's relatively unproven. Bellerin's got the potential to be a great right back. He started off really well, didn't he? His Arsenal career kind of hit a bit of a brick wall. I felt maybe that was because the whole team were defending so poorly, and hopefully when he gets over this injury, we'll see the best of him again. Tierney, I agree with what you said, Craig. The league over there is so poor that it's impossible to say how these players are going to do in the Premier League. And Holding, he looks a very good defender, but he's another one with a long way to go. We've only seen half a season of Holding in the first team playing regularly. So, it looks promising, but there's a long way to go with all those players, and that's the hope. But it's really difficult to sit here now and say, they're going to lead us back to glory.
Harry, on Tierney, a good friend of mine, he knows quite a lot about football. Is an a staunch Rangers fan, and he was comparing Tierney to Roberts, and he said that Tierney, it pained him to say, was better than Roberts, and he said also, give it a year or 2, he could be a future Arsenal captain.
Yeah, a lot of people have spoken about that, and fingers crossed he is. I haven't seen it, so I can't sit here and say yes, Kieran Tierney's going to be the next best thing at left back, because I'll be lying if I said I sat and watched the Scottish League.
Agreed. Yeah.
And are these kinds of defensive players? I mean, fast Bellerin, Tierney, who bombs up the left side, from what I've heard. Are these the type of players that are going to keep a ton of clean sheets, or are these players that are going to help us win games 4-1?
Who cares? It don't matter when we're 10-0 up.
I don't care either, but
Yeah.
when you're talking about it back to 1-0 to the Arsenal, I'm not so sure we're ever going to see those days again.
I think it's dependent on who we got in CDM, and I don't think Xhaka's good enough.
Yeah. Well, that's true, because if
I was saving him till later.
Sorry, Craig.
Early, late, and middle.
Yeah, absolutely. This one, I don't know what this is. Don't know. Lead judges don't know what they're talking about, especially the American.
I expected that.
I don't know what he means by that.
How you doing?
Is he on the plane or is it the airport?
He's ordered a half plane to take him to England.
A half plane.
Has he got a new T-shirt?
Oh dear. There was a question there that I was going to go to Fergus and Trev with. Look at this one, talking about Emery when we were talking about Emery. This one comes in from Russ. Hello, Russ. Good evening to you, mate. Thanks for watching. I'm done with being patient with Emery. As for 1 year, I'm done with being patient for Emery. Has 1 year left. If he fails, he's gone. Allegri or Mourinho in. Trev, what do you say about that?
Mourinho over my dead bloody body, let me tell you, boys.
Russ is way older than you, Trev, so he doesn't have much time left to wait for a resurgence. He's going quick.
No, listen, we've, we said we wanted changes when Emery came in, right? Didn't we? And we're getting changes. You can't say he's sat back. He's done. We've got new players in. We're looking different side. I think we're more attacking. That's debatable, but I think we are. So you've got to give him that time. You've got to give him at least this season as well. And then I think we get to the end of this season and we reevaluate. But at the moment, I won't say a bad word about him. We wanted change. We're getting change. Let's see how it works, eh?
Absolutely. Fergus, what would you say about that?
I hate Mourinho.
You hate Mourinho. I don't like him either, but
I hate his style of football. I hate everything he represents. He's an arrogant. It's just.
Is that because he beat us all the time?
No. No, it's not about the voyeur. It's not anything about any of that.
I think as Arsenal fans, we can be a bit silly sometimes, and people on Twitter saying, "Oh, Arsenal fans want Mourinho in this, that, and the other." We have to get it right. He's one of the most successful managers of our time.
Destroying dressing rooms, yeah.
Well, he hasn't destroyed. 1 second, he hasn't destroyed every dressing room he's been into.
To answer your question, Craig, Allegri or Mourinho are irrelevant. Unai's in the seat. Unai's got till the end of this season. Well, for me, if he's where Ollie's going to be at Christmas, which is about 10th, then he gets sacked. But I don't think he'll be there. I think he'll be top 3, top 4 by Christmas, and I think he'll be competing for the Champions League. If he gets into the Champions League by the end of the season, he gets the extension for a year. And lots of people going on about, we want a different manager and we want Allegri, we want Mourinho. I'm not going to swear, but Jesus, cut yourselves on, guys.
Well, I mean, look, I'm not saying that I want him in, but what I'm saying is because I don't want him in because I believe in Unai Emery, and I think that even if Unai Emery doesn't get us in the top 4 this year, I'll give him another year. That's just me. But I
agree.
Yeah, I mean, I can't have a fella coming in for 2 years and then then deciding after 2 years, well, do you know what? Nah, go on.
Well,
that's not Arsenal. It's not the Arsenal.
Look what happened at United. United are what, 5 managers in?
Yeah. But it happened the same. It happened the same at Liverpool. Klopp didn't do too amazingly, did he? In his first year and a half. Now look at them. They're flying, and people didn't want Klopp.
I can't stand Mourinho, and I don't want him at Arsenal. There's no question about that. But if you was in a one-off game and you needed to get a result, there is not a better manager in the world, in my opinion, that you would rely on to make sure you get over the line. I think he's a fantastic manager. He hasn't just lost it overnight. He's had a few bad spells here and there. But if you look at the years he's been a manager, he's been active, and you look at his honours list, it's incredible. And no matter what we think
from him,
maybe it has, but no matter what we think about him, you cannot deny that he is one of the elite managers in football. I hate him. I hate his guts, but it's the truth.
But the style of football has moved on. I agree with what you're saying that he's an elite manager, but the style of football has changed. He's very much like a George Graham-esque, and not comparing him, but I'm saying he's very defensive. He's all about the defence first. Where now we're looking at people all trying to emulate Pep and play out from the back and so on. So I think the Premier League has gone beyond Mourinho.
And George Graham's an interesting comparison because maybe on the pitch, the style, but what George Graham was to those Arsenal players in behind the scenes, inspirationally. I mean, I don't know that Mourinho has that anymore because I think he's too self-centered to be inspirational. I think it's just, it's about throwing his weight around and throwing that he's more important than Paul Pogba, that he's more important than Kevin De Bruyne, or whatever the case may be in those situations. And that wasn't what George Graham was.
I think that's a generational thing as well, though.
Inspirational. Yeah. But it is. But but when you play defensively and conservatively, and you're just constantly undermining and throwing your players under the bus after the game, you don't have a team that follows you wherever you go, and I think that would be damaging. I think we have some pretty brittle, and we're getting rid of them, but we have some pretty brittle psyches in our 24 players, especially going back to the last few years. I think the last thing that they need is somebody who is either too forgiving, Arsene Wenger, or just absolute bell end and divisive, like Jose Mourinho.
Something else.
Right. Sorry,
Trev. Carry on.
No, you're right, mate. You're exactly right. I mean, if you're a top, I don't rate Mourinho over the last few years. I'm a bit with Fergus. I think he's gone backwards. But if you're a top manager, you don't alienate your players like he did at Manchester United. You work with them and you get them working for you, because that's what managers are employed for. He was awful at Man United. Watching them videos of what he was doing to Pogba on the training field, no good. If you're
hold them accountable, but don't embarrass them.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
I think that a manager like Mourinho is so extreme. One way you're either with him or you're really not. And another example, I don't know if anyone's seen that Roy Keane interview this week where he was talking about Alex Ferguson. Nobody talks about Alex Ferguson in a bad light, but he's a manager who alienated players, staged arguments to push people out the door because they didn't suit what he wanted to do. We've seen it. Roy Keane's not the first, and he won't be the last to say that about Fergie. But it's just interesting how when it's Mourinho, because of the way he is in the press and because he's so public about his feelings at times, I think, they're both very similar in the way they handle their players, but one seems to get worse press than the other.
I think there may be some generational issue with player power there as well. Ferguson started and maybe ended his career, and maybe partially because of this, because player power started to overtake ownership power and manager power. And when you have players who say, "I don't got to take this,"
players weren't millionaires then, were they?
Well, and Twitter and social media and the money and the power and the sponsors. Alex Ferguson was revered, but Alex Ferguson today, with his tactics from the 80s and the 90s, probably be in the same boat. I hate to say it, but he had the reputation of Alex Ferguson with his success, and players who were scared to let him down, and that's not the case today. And I don't know a manager in the world, including Pep Guardiola, who could get away with being like Alex Ferguson was, or like Mourinho is now, without pushing a few people out the door and having controversy surround your team.
Changing the subject completely, I wish to talk about Granit Xhaka's comments during the week. I caused a little bit of a stir on Twitter by saying that he actually had a point, because he does he does have a point, because if Guendouzi or Aubameyang or Lacazette puts one of their chances away in the second half, we're celebrating a 3-2 win against Spurs, and what Xhaka done in the first half's all right. Doesn't matter. We won the game. So for me, he has a little bit of a point. But I can understand the uproar within the fan base of how arrogant he was being, to try and take away the fact that it was his stupid tackle. And we mustn't take away from the fact that it was a stupid tackle.
One of many, and possibly have cost us a derby win. We can't say. We didn't have a crystal ball. Who knows? Spurs might have gone on to got another one. But You say ifs and buts.
Fergus. Granit Xhaka's comments. What do you make of them?
You said ifs and buts on there, but if Harry Kane had been a millimetre tighter, we could have lost that game. So Granit Xhaka's comments is for maybe the team meeting. It's not for TV at an interview in Lansdowne Road, the Aviva Stadium. It's not for an interview there. That is for stuff that's behind closed doors, where they go, you Aubameyang, you get 50 shots, but you still score 30 goals a season. Aubameyang is very wasteful sometimes with some of his opportunities. Lacazette, Guendouzi, there's loads of players who have fault, but that's the game. His job was to defend and be a CDM, and he failed miserably yet again.
Trev.
Yeah, I have to agree. Just going back to what you said there, Craig, about Xhaka saying that if the forwards had scored, his tackle wouldn't have mattered. You could turn that around completely, can't you? Because if he hadn't tackled him, the forwards' misses wouldn't have mattered. So it works both ways. And with Ferguson all the way, you don't go out public like that, especially not when you're the club captain now. You leave that
He's
stuff
not fit
in
to
the
be captain.
dressing room. You leave that, but regardless of that, Fergus, you leave that stuff in the dressing room. That's for a chat behind closed doors. When you're out in public or you're out on the field, you show united front regardless. You know.
And Trev, if he was a captain, he wouldn't be doing that in public.
Yeah, but he is Fergus, and
it's odd because he's been captain of Switzerland. He's been captain of Mönchengladbach. This is not a new role for him yet. That wasn't leadership in the least.
But Mike,
not leadership at all.
It's everybody's favourite manager that's given him the armband.
I don't understand it, Harry and Mike. Wenger, if Granit Xhaka is fit, he is on Wenger's starting 11, first man on the team sheet. Unai Emery, if he's fit, first man on the team sheet. Switzerland, captain, first man on the team sheet. What are they seeing that we're not seeing?
Andy, who co-hosts our podcast with us, is a big supporter of Granit Xhaka. He's very
because he's a white stick.
He is basically saying he needs to take a break right now. His decisions are diabolical and it's awful. But he always talks about. He said there's got to be something that they see from him that puts him in the captain. It's not just his good looks. There's got to be something footballing or inspirational or something. I don't see it. I am kind of a moderate supporter of his. I think he's not as bad as people make it out to be. I think he's not as good as it's one of these yin yang things where you almost have to be either completely for him or completely against him. And I try to ride the fence a little bit, but I can't ride the fence with him this season and the decision making he's made, and kind of from the end of last season with the penalty against was it Brighton or Palace or I think it was Brighton.
He exposes the weaknesses in our defense as well.
It's very Mustafi-like, where the stats might look good, but what you're seeing with your own eyes just tells you there should be better options. But when you start saying, well, there must be something about him that makes him leadership quality to be the first name on the team sheet, and then you see him come out in the press and saying anything, whether taken slightly out of context or not, which I believe it may have been. You got to be more careful than that, because it just makes you look like you want to be absolved. It reminds me of every single time we get leak a goal with Mustafi, and the hand goes up and he's looking around instead of the intense "I'm not going to do that again" type of reaction. So I don't get it. I don't
think it was taken out of context, though, Mike.
I've read some context that said he was kind of speaking more generically and not as much about the Tottenham game specifically, but to me, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I was going to say, even still, it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. No. I'm just saying it's not. It's like when Mustafi made comments that some people took to mean that he doesn't mind not having clean sheets. That was taken away out of context, but it was still kind of a dumb thing to say.
And what do you make of, like you say, he needs to take a time out of the team for a little while? What do you say about the reports about he's going to have, I think, time out until October because he's got a new family coming and stuff? Is that clever? I had
heard. I think James Gunnerblog said that it was a little bit misconstrued. They were basically saying that he was going to get the next international break off, not that he was going to be missing games for Arsenal. But I guess that remains to be seen. But I'm not saying it's not true, but it comes at a convenient time where sometimes it seems like Arsenal like to sit players under a different pretense than just you're not good enough, instead like back injuries and foot injuries and illness from a certain attacking midfielder.
I was going to say if Emery's not happy with him, he'll get rid of him, Mustafi, and Ozil. He's happy to bench them.
Yeah.
Just before we carry on, Mike. Sorry, just before we carry on and we go to Harry's thoughts. I just need to clear something up here because there's a few of this in the comments. Craig, if I'm okay with Xhaka making that mistake, then you should be okay with starting Mustafi. Let me get this completely clear. I am not happy with the mistake that Granit Xhaka made. It was an absolutely ridiculous tackle and has cost us the game. My only point being that Granit Xhaka had a bit of a point. Because yes, there was chances missed that could have got him out of jail. That's my point. My point is that I'm not happy with the way Xhaka plays.
He texted me. He was like, "That was incredible."
Yeah.
I love it. But yeah, I mean, Lee says things. People, that doesn't mean that if you were playing for the team, captaining the team, that you should be saying the same things. Opinions are meant for pundits, not for team captains.
Harry, what are your thoughts on his words?
On his words, I don't think it was the smartest thing to say. I'm not Granit Xhaka's biggest fan, but I'm someone that doesn't think he's as bad as everyone else says, just like Mike. But in terms of the words he said, they were stupid. He shouldn't have said them. It was always going to cause a stir after what had happened in the North London derby and that stupid challenge. And, people have been losing patience with Granit Xhaka and his mistakes for a while. But I don't really understand what people expected him to say, because I think I tweeted at the time and I said, what did people expect? Did they expect him to say, put his hands up and say, yeah, I'm shit. I've got no idea why the manager picks me every week. Like, I don't get what people wanted from that, to be honest. It was a silly comment to make, but there is something in Granit Xhaka that the managers all love. And, Reece Nelson, I think it is today, has been talking about how helpful some of the senior players have been in terms of trying to get the youngsters to come through and helping them out. And he's mentioned Granit Xhaka there. So there's obviously something that Granit Xhaka brings to the table. As I've said time and time again, I don't think Granit Xhaka is a DM. I think people need to stop labeling him as that. And remember that against Spurs, we played with a flat midfield three. So his job wasn't necessarily to be the defensive midfielder. When I look at that, I would have said that Torreira should have been the deepest line player. But again, that's an issue that I take with Unai Emery's tactics and his approach in certain games. So I think the problem is at Arsenal is that we've got a bunch of average midfield players, and Granit Xhaka is just one of them. And Granit Xhaka is one that gives you something slightly different in the sense that he can ping a pass. And in the second half against Spurs, I thought it was actually pretty good, apart from the stupid fouls. He was picking out passes and he was helping us tick. And I thought we moved the ball a lot better in the second half of that game. So do I want him out? No. If someone better comes along, then yeah, replace him by all means. But I just think,
Harry, could you play David Luiz in that position? That's his favorite.
Absolutely. But that all depends on what Unai Emery's trying to do, and I can't see what that is at the moment. Because we went to Anfield and we played with a diamond midfield. We played against Spurs with a flat three. The week before we had a 2 and a 1. It just until that is clear, then you can't identify the right players to fit the puzzle. It's like we've got, do you know what I mean? It's changing every week. We've got the same pieces.
The diamond at Anfield, he got slagged off a lot about that. But in reality, what he was trying to do was control the front three and bring in the attack on the wings because he could deal with it in the middle of the pitch. And in the main, they done all right. I don't think we got roasted at Liverpool.
No, I didn't expect Arsenal to go to Liverpool and win, and I didn't really have any particular issues with what Emery did. I said on the pod that I understood why he did it. It's not necessarily what I would have done, but I got why he went that way. So I haven't really got a problem with that. My problem with Emery stretches all the way back to last season. Craig will tell you. I've been saying it from day one. What is it that we are trying to do? When you work out what it is we are trying to do, then you go out in the transfer market and you get the players to fit what it is you're trying to do. We've gone and brought in 11 players since Unai Emery's come in, and the system is still unclear. So if it is Edu and Raul bringing in the players, how are they supposed to identify the right ones? when they don't understand.
I think it's clearer though. I think the fly in the ointment is Ozil, and if they can get rid of, they've got rid of Mkhitaryan of 180, 200 grand off the wage bill. If they can get rid of Ozil in January, I'm hearing to DC United or somewhere like that. Even on a loan.
That's my hometown club, by the way.
Cheers. Sorry.
That's the one place I'd actually like watching Ozil play.
Okay, well, you can take it with our blessing. But I think if they do that, then they don't have to shoehorn in these superstars and these egos. Like you've seen what's happened with Ceballos coming in. It's just been transformational. I know he's not going to be with us for more than a year. It's unlikely Real Madrid are going to sell him to us. But it's been transformational to the way Unai's done it. He does change game by game depending on who he's playing, but which is where you're getting the confusion from. But I think he's doing all right.
But if you mentioned that Ceballos has been a transformation, it's been brilliant. So why didn't he start against Spurs? How do you explain that? Because we're talking about we're talking about leaving Ozil out, and that Ceballos is more suited to the role that we want. But then Ceballos doesn't play.
I think maybe what he was trying to do in that particular game was shock and awe. He had Pepe, he had Lacazette, he had Aubameyang up front. He thought he'd have, as you said, a flat central midfield, a reasonably best stable back defensive line that he had, and he was going to try and smack their asses and get a couple of goals. But because our midfield had no creativity, no Ceballos, Torreira was on his ass half the time, sliding all over the place. We got caught with two really crap mistakes.
You see, the thing is, boys, we can't work out Emery at the moment because, as you've rightly said, he changes it every week. But I think his problem at the moment is how is he fitting these three in up front? Yeah, he's playing Lacazette, Pepe, and Aubameyang. I think if he's playing the front three, he's got to play a flat midfield three behind him because he's got to have four at the back, right? But what concerns me more at the moment, right? Moving, just leaving Xhaka aside for the moment, is I don't think I know I'm changing the subject, Craig, so pull me on this if you want.
No, not at all, mate. Carry on.
But I don't like Aubameyang playing out wide, and I don't know how he's going to solve that. I don't know how he's going to solve that because I think Lacazette offers us, if I'm honest, more through the middle. The only thing I can see is Lacazette drops behind and plays basically a 10 position. I don't know.
So why did he go and spend 72 million, whatever it was, on Pepe if it was going to cause him selection problems up front? And quite clearly, our defense is a more urgent issue. That's another thing I can't get my head around.
We needed a winger, though.
Quality.
But we also needed a centre half.
Yes, exactly. we got both.
Yeah, you're right.
We did.
You're bang on, mate.
These are what you want to have, though. I mean, putting Aubameyang on the wing so that he and Lacazette and Pepe can both be there. I mean, I don't like him on the wing, but I like him on the wing more than Theo Walcott. And I know that we've got better options now. We've got Reece. But I mean, I think you play the best players that you can, and clearly the chemistry between Lacazette and Aubameyang is such that even if they're not necessarily in the position that you'd like to see them at the most, because you'd probably both put them at the 9. They're going to have magic together. I mean, how many games have we seen where they've both scored goals? I don't care whether Aubameyang's playing on the wing or centrally when they both score goals like they did last week and 40 other times since they played for Arsenal.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, I mean, but I see where Trev's I see where Trev's going because I'm in 100% agreement with him. I hate seeing Aubameyang out on the wing, but like you said, Mike, if Aubameyang and Lacazette are scoring goals. And they're both on the pitch. Who cares where they're playing? Aubameyang can play centre half for all I care, as long as he's going to run forward and score a goal. But Harry brings up a good point, and why did he sign Pepe when we were screaming out for a centre half, Mike? What do you reckon about that?
Does that question come in part because of the fact that he started off without a goal in 4 games? I mean, is there any inkling of that?
No.
Because I hope there's not. Because
that question is purely based on the fact that we're now sitting here talking about how we're going to shoehorn Pepe, Aubameyang, and Lacazette all into the same side
when we needed a centre half. Yeah.
When we needed something, in my opinion, that was a lot more urgent. So we've opted to give ourselves a headache in a position that in a front position where we were, in my opinion, you play Aubameyang and Lacazette up front together, and that is a fantastic partnership. So if there was £72 million available to go out and get a player, then you've got to strengthen the position that let you down last season. And last season, Arsenal scored more goals than Chelsea, more goals than Spurs, but our defensive record was horrendous. It was worse than Wenger's last season, and I can promise you that we are on course once again to concede over 50 goals in this Premier League season. And you'll look back at this at the end of the season and you'll see we are going to concede just as many goals.
Harry,
and for me, that's the priority. That's what you got to fix.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. And would I love to have seen one more quality center half come in rather than necessarily Luiz, who was kind of more of a clear stopgap? Sure, but I mean, you overhaul your team at a rapid pace as we have been, and there are going to be things that take longer. I mean, Van Dijk wasn't brought in until the third or fourth year of Klopp's reign, and they had clear and obvious defensive problems prior to that. We have a lot of out of 10s. We got 5s and 6s at center back right now. Holding, I think you could call an 8 if he's healthy and fulfills his potential. But we do have Holding, Saliba coming in next season. We have Chambers. We have Callum Chambers, who's not put a foot wrong in the first 2 games. He's not a center half for a top 3 team, but he can do a job. We have Socrates. We have players in that position, and Saliba coming in next season. I think they probably were reserving the back 4 for January or possibly.
So is Saliba and Holding title winning centre halves?
Holding possibly.
How could we know that at this point? My hope is
it is, but it clearly isn't.
I mean, believe me, there's going to be a lot of people just typing hashtag now it's Upamecano starting in late December. I know that, but I'd love to see them to have another center half. But I think once you see an injury, which is inevitable, I'm not calling for it, I'm not hoping for it, but once you see an injury somewhere in our attacking front 3, front 4, whatever you want to call it, we're going to be happy that we signed Pepe and we have selection problems up top. And frankly, I don't even know that we have selection problems, given that you could start the 3 of them every game.
The strong links with who's that? Kalubia? Craig, you try and pronounce it. Koulibaly. There we go.
Did you see his own goal last week?
Yeah, he's had a few mares.
He has. Just get on the comments here now. Look at this one. Why did we sign Welsh class prospect Pepe? Guys, please give your head a wobble. Again, we're not. Again, we're not slagging off the signing of Pepe.
Right. No,
I'm delighted he's here. Don't get me wrong. Yes, he's going to be great.
He's just going to find his feet.
I know people who are still calling, even with everybody that we have, that are still calling for us in January to try to nick Wilfried Zaha.
I mean, but wait a minute. Don't misunderstand what Harry said. Harry, let me just clarify if I'm thinking this, because I was thinking the same as you. Pepe's a great signing. Happy with him. Have him all day. But should he have been a priority when we shipped over 50 goals last season?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Exactly the point. Yeah.
Perhaps not, but I'm also going to come out and say, unless you are Manchester City or Manchester United, you can't plug every single hole that you have in one transfer window. And we clearly had an opportunity with a very good structured payment plan to get a world-class prospect like Pepe, and we took it. Maybe we didn't have that opportunity with Koulibaly, with Upamecano, or with Umtiti or somebody of that nature. But believe me, I was calling for us to try to get a Lewis Dunk type player in who was Premier League ready, and that didn't happen. But I mean,
would you have taken Cahill?
Would I have taken Cahill
over Luiz?
No, I'd probably take Luiz, despite his propensity to have a shocker every once in a while.
And we talk about Pepe at 72 million. Remember, we did get 40. We got 40 million back for Iwobi, and if you look at what Man City have to pay for, I don't know which one of you guys said Premier League winning. I think it was you, Craig. Premier League winning quality centre halves. Man City paid 50 million for Walker and Stones. So, us paying 25 million for an 18-year-old guy in the French league, that's one hell of an investment.
We're not going to do that. We're not going to do.
It's an investment. Is it an investment though? It could be a hell of a waste of money.
The point is,
you get a sell on.
The point is,
he only played 9 games for St Etienne last year.
What was Louise then? Was Louise a last-minute panic buy, or had we planned that?
No,
Absolute panic buy.
I don't think so. I think for 8 million, I think for 8 million,
a bargain.
It was a bargain. Yeah.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe that Arsenal tried to keep Laurent Koscielny, and when that wasn't going to happen, they turned to David Luiz, and it was a last-minute deal. And David Luiz's agents probably gone around and touted him about my client.
He's mates with Edu as well.
Yeah, my client wants to stay in London. It's not going to work out at Chelsea. Let's get him out the door, and they made that move happen. There was no sign of that happening in the past. You know, it was just out of the blue, and that says to me that it was a panic buy. It was a last minute deal.
Fat Frank had dropped him to fourth tier as well, hadn't he? So
so they claim.
But also as well,
I can't see how. Sorry, go on. I can't see how Frank Lampard has said to David Luiz that he's 4th tier when you look at the 2 centre halves that are playing for Chelsea.
Absolutely.
He says that David Luiz is 4th tier. That's why I don't believe it. You're telling me that Kurt Zuma is better than David Luiz?
We could almost swing back to the Mourinho era and the dressing room within Stamford Bridge. John Terry, Fat Frank, Jose Mourinho. It was toxic. And there, I think you will have a situation where Fat Frank doesn't like David Luiz.
Could be.
Absolutely.
It's a great point.
Just going on to that point, I think that Fergus made about how much Manchester City have to pay for the likes of Stones and Walker. And I totally accept that point, but you've also got to remember that they are Premier League players that come with an extra premium. Yes. And Manchester City are the ones that are going in for them. So you automatically bump your price up. There are lots and lots of top quality footballers outside of the Premier League. And if you do your shopping right, you can find them. And I just worry that, you know, we started off the transfer window, we weren't doing much. There was the We Care Do You campaign. All of a sudden, Arsenal had made a few signings. Everybody got, you know, oh, great, we're doing some business.
But Harry, don't try and link We Care with saying that they got signings. We Care is a lot more than that.
I'm not, because I was part of it. I was involved in the original group, in the WhatsApp group as well. And, you know, I know exactly what it's all about, and that wasn't the intention. But what I'm saying is that the signings came, which in a way took the wind out of the sails of that, I've got to say. And then from then on, you know, ultimately all we've done is recuperated all the money that we've bloody spent. Iwobi's gone out. We've managed to cut Mkhitaryan off the wage bill now. Nacho Monreal's gone. And it feels like we've just been we've swapped players. We haven't really strengthened as much as people think, in my opinion.
Well, we've got rid of crap and got slightly better.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've done masterful business.
Pepe is better than Iwobi.
The business we've done is good.
And mostly
it's okay. It's okay.
It's not going to win us. It's not going to win us the title, but the business I thought we've done is good.
But the objective is to get the top 4.
But given what you've seen out of Raul so far with his deal making and his approach, I mean, the difference. You can start to see, and I know we're all tired of hearing this, but you can start to see a 3-year plan. And again, you only have to point to Liverpool to see the trajectory that we're on. And again, Liverpool didn't plug every single hole that they had in one transfer window. They had an awful defense and did very little to change that. While they built one of the strongest attacks in the league. And you know, they have a guy who doesn't ever tinker with that front three, so we'll see. But you know, it comes over time. They didn't really plug the biggest need that they had with the big purchase that they made until they had recouped some transfer fees from you know, Philip Coutinho and a couple others.
Great point, Mike.
I kind of see the same thing happening with us. You know, again,
there's a big difference though. The big difference is that Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp had a blueprint of what they wanted to do. I can guarantee you that Jurgen Klopp knew exactly how he wanted that team to look in terms of style, formation, and the type of personnel that he needed to make that work from the day he walked in at Anfield.
That Mr. Dossier Unai Emery has that vision and now actually has some backing from the boardroom to be able to do that, or the rate.
What is the vision though? Because he's brought in 11 players and we still don't know the vision.
The target is top 4. The target last season was top 4. The target this season is top 4. If we get into the top 4, then we can attract the other higher level of players. We are not a Championship, Premier League winning side at the moment. We are just about, okay, I think because Chelsea and Man United are in a lot of disarray, we should by default, you would have thought, it should have been last season as well, we should by default be in the top 4. I actually think we're probably better than Spurs as it stands at the minute, because I think Spurs are there on their curve. They're going down on their curve. There's some crap going on inside their dressing room. So I think I put us down for a solid top 3 finish. I can't see us getting anywhere near Liverpool or Man City. But go back 3-4 years ago, as Mike said, and look at Liverpool. Liverpool were struggling to get into the top 4, the top 6. They were doing farting about with the Europa League and so on. So Harry, have some faith. You know, I think Unai has got a plan.
There was signs.
I'm sorry,
Liverpool.
I have to.
I didn't see any signs from Liverpool after their 8th.
Mike,
no.
What Harry's
what Harry's trying to say. I know what Harry's trying to say is. I know what Harry's trying to say. We've had Unai Emery for a year and to the start of this season, and I have to agree with him. I'm the same. I can't see a style. You know, every week. You know, right? This is our style. He's chopping and changing. He's bringing in different players.
But that is his style.
But what Harry's trying to say is Jurgen Klopp came into Liverpool and he said, right, this is how I'm going to play football.
Thing in, even with the wrong players.
This is how I'm going to play football. This is my formation. This is how I'm going to play every week. Now, so I've got these players to play with. Right, you're going to play there. You're going to play there. You're going to play there. Until he started to get some transfer funds, and still he started picking off these players that he wanted to bring in, and he got them all playing how he wanted them to play. And now look at them. We haven't got, and I have to agree with Harry, we haven't got a playing style at the moment.
It's like trying to build a house with no foundation.
That's fair enough to say. I mean, Liverpool went and played his style, even though they didn't have the right players to do it. Unai seems a little bit more willing to compromise his style.
It's almost too pragmatic.
Well, yeah. Well,
yeah.
I guess we'll see. I mean,
we've got to We've got.
I think it's early to judge.
Trev, come in there, mate. 1 second there, Trev, come in.
It is too early to judge, Mike. We've got to stick with Emery. I fully see what Harry's getting at there, because we do change the style. There doesn't seem to be a set game plan, but we are seeing change. I said it earlier in the show, and I'll say it again. For me, I'm sticking with him. End of this season, I'll think about it again. But he probably needs next season as well. And don't forget, it's not just about Emery now, is it? Craig, I can't say their names. The two, the Sanalahai and the other lad.
Raul Sanyehi.
Raul
Sanyehi.
Yeah, Raul.
Just say the Don, and everyone will know who you're talking about.
I've got a poll idea for you, by the way, after this. Go on, Trev, you finish.
More than him right now.
We've just got to let these boys all work their magic, all start working together and have the faith and see where we go. We will be top 4 this season. I'm a bit gutted because listening to you boys, I've had a pound on us to win it at 66-1. Do I throw that in the bin now? Do I that ticket or what? But you know,
I'm with you, Trev. I mean, if he gets us in if he gets us in the Champions League at the end of the season, or if we get into the Champions League at the end of the season, top 4 into the Champions League. I mean, what's Raul Sanelli going to pull out of his back pocket if we get in the Champions League?
People are looking for a Champions League manager instead of a Europa League manager when that happens. I just wait for it. When we finish 3rd, we get into the Champions League, and people are like, okay, now we need to reload with an actual manager.
I hate our fan base.
Well, no, I totally disagree.
Is that not going to happen, Fergus?
Yeah.
It is.
So you're saying, what are you saying? He's got to go then, Mike? Are you?
No.
I'm saying the masses out there who
warriors,
a little bit of a whine are going to say, well, good job, but now we have to replace the manager. I'm just predicting something that's gonna make me.
Okay.
You just made me sick to the pit of my stomach, Mike.
The fact, though,
I like to do that in advance before it happens.
Thank you.
The fact that Emery only got given a 2-year contract with the option to extend it to a 3rd tells you that the club were only looking from Unai Emery to get back in the Champions League. After that, that's a different matter. So that's, Mike, your point is, in my opinion, I think it's right. I think that once Arsenal, I think when Arsenal do get back in the Champions League, there'll be there'll be another search for a maybe more long-term manager. I genuinely believe that this guy was brought in with the thought of we need. Go on.
hang on. So his prize for getting Arsenal back into the Champions League will be the sack.
Yeah, no, I don't agree with that at all.
I don't agree. I think he'll get at least a season in the Champions League.
I'm saying there's people that will call for that, and I guess we're amongst one right now. But he gets at least one year in the Champions League to see how he handles the competition mixed with the and not dropping in the league, with support from the transfer policy that I could only see continuing. But it won't stop people from calling for it. But I can't imagine that. I think the 2 years plus one option was meant to give them an out in case it just completely went belly up and he wasn't working out, to not be tied down to where they had to pay another 16 million quid to somebody for 2 years that they're not managing. I think that's what the 2 years was about, not so they could cut him loose as soon as we grab the success that we're all asking for.
Sorry,
I'm still here. Don't worry, I'm still here.
He's just.
I was just going to say, if Raul and Edu have got anything about them, and Arsenal do get back in the Champions League, then they want to push this club back to the very top, and that's what their ambition is. Then they need to start looking for a better manager than Unai Emery, because he's not top quality. Nothing I've seen has persuaded me of that.
But Harry, surely if he gets us into the Champions League, we can't. If he gets us back into the Champions League, we can't just turn around and go, "Well, thanks for that, Unai. Off now. Cheers."
Of course we can't, Craig. Of course
we can't do that. We've got to give
depends
him a
on what your
year
ambitions are.
Harry, I've been agreeing with you all night, mate. But that's you can't. He's a young manager, Emery. If he gets in the Champions League, then you've got to give him as a person a chance to improve and develop himself as well. It's a big picture, So
he's been in the Champions League before, though, and he hasn't necessarily set the world on fire. Even at PSG, you go to PSG, you're expected to win the title every year. He didn't. They expected progress in the Champions League. It didn't happen. That's why ultimately but you would win 4 trophies. You'd win the French Cup, the French League with that squad of players. That's kind of the point.
Have you seen this?
The expectation that was there at PSG, and he couldn't live up to it. And that's why ultimately he was allowed to leave PSG. So why
is he taking a beating in the chat right now?
Honestly,
I love it.
Can I ask you guys two questions? There's one slightly jovial and one slightly serious. The first one is, we mentioned Raul and how the Don and everything else. Outside the Emirates, whose statue comes first, Wenger's or Raul's? And the second question is, Harry and the other guys, you say if and I hope, and I as I predicted, we get into the top 4 next season, and I've put my marker down on 3rd. You talk about Emery getting sacked because he's not. I'm not. Hang on. He's not good at. Sorry, I'm asking you to hang on. I've interrupted everybody all night. He's not good enough of a manager to be a Champions League quality manager. But do you actually see us challenging past the last 16 in the Champions League initially?
Well, first of all, that's got to be the ambition. What's the point? So you've got to have that.
It's the money and to attract the players, isn't it?
Well, Ajax went to the semi-finals of the Champions League last season on very little budget. So I think you can challenge. I think in terms of talking about him getting sacked, he's not going to be sacked if his contract isn't extended. Do you see what I'm saying? If he gets to the end of his second year, achieves his targets, and then leaves the club, that's not him being sacked. That's Arsenal having brought in a manager who served his purpose, achieved what they wanted him to achieve, and now it's time to move on.
That is.
It's not the Arsenal way.
It's not renewing the contract. But what is the Arsenal way? We haven't seen Arsenal change managers for 22 years.
Yeah, but everything we do, Harry, in the main, we hold a little bit of class. Bringing Freddie in, I know we had Stevie Bull, but that was just to try and keep some class and tradition. That shirt, behind us there, the stuff that Arsenal do is just the proper way to do things. And
that shirt is a fail. Sorry,
is it?
Yeah, it's rubbish.
Craig,
how anyone can tell me that is a modernised version of the bruised banana? Get out of town. It's a load of shit. And Adidas have a big fail there. So I know the people from Adidas watch this podcast. You failed. The bruised banana is what you can see on the background of this podcast. That's the bruised banana.
That's a chevron.
Your stupid lines that look like they've been done by someone, a 3-year-old with a spray can, is not having it with me.
I'm glad I brought it up to a really high level of football discussion.
I'm with Craig. I'm with Craig. Bring back the proper bruised banana, Eddie. That's
now we're on the
absolutely
national development.
They missed a massive trick there. A massive, massive trick.
They should release a retro one maybe next year or halfway through the season.
I've seen the retro players one that they want to release. I've seen it leaked, and it looks like a poor Sunday league kit that fat blokes wear on a Sunday.
So I obviously have 3 of them.
So, yeah, I need to get another few shirts then by the sounds of it.
I don't know what's going on with my camera either. It keeps turning off. But as long as you can still hear me, that's all that matters. But anyway, look, surely we can't. We were talking about Emery there, getting the heave ho. Harry, do you think that might be? Do you think that they might have said that to him?
Well, everybody keeps talking about the new regime. Well, the new regime didn't hire Unai Emery. So what makes people so sure that these lot are going to stick with him? That's another
a bloody good point, to be honest.
Gazidis hired Unai Emery.
Yeah.
So, but now everybody's certain that Raul and Edu want him. They might not necessarily see him as the future. So that's the first point. And the second point is, I'm not saying that I want him sacked right now. I'm just saying that maybe he's not the right man. And based on the evidence we've seen, I'm yet to be convinced that he is. So come the end of the season, if Arsenal scrape into the top 4, given what you guys have said about how bad the rest of the teams around us are this year, then
I don't think we'll scrape.
Well, I don't think that we're going to breeze it. So if we do get into the top 4, you still have to evaluate the season and look at the circumstances around it. Now, when people were talking about last season, and I was one of them, saying that Arsenal absolutely were terrible to miss out on the top 4, it's not because I thought Arsenal was so much better than the year before. It's because of the circumstances around us, and you've got to take those into consideration.
Last 5 games, yeah.
When you're judging things. So it's not that I want him chopped now, but just bear in mind that these guys that are running our football club right now are not the people that hired Unai Emery. Ivan Gazidis and Sven Mislintat were the ones that sat down with Unai Emery and gave him the job. So if these guys have a different opinion, a different vision, then you could well see Unai Emery pushed out after his contract ends. That's all I'm saying.
But don't you...
Harry, I can tell you that while they were not the ones that hired him, I can tell you that the current regime at Arsenal, the Unai, not Unai, we're talking about Unai, Josh, Vinay, Raul, they absolutely 100% believe in Unai Emery.
But they've said that to people. They're not going to say they don't, are they?
But his job is just on the pitch. All the stuff behind the scenes. Hus Farmi does the contracts. Edu does the scouting and technical director stuff. Raul, the Don, he goes and finds the people. He does we've got like 3 David Deans, basically.
Well, and trust me when I say that they support him, and not just when the camera's on. They're not. They're all in on Unai Emery at this point, and I think they'll reevaluate it at the end of the season. But I don't see that they're thinking one coach ahead or one manager ahead at this point. You make a very good point that they didn't hire him and that the previous regime did, but I certainly think that they, in every way, think that he's the man to take them forward.
Some of the people I've known inside the club, I agree with you, Mike. Sorry, go on, Craig.
I totally agree, and I think
go on. Sorry.
No, go on. You go for it because I'm trying to sort out my bloody camera here. Go on.
I was going to say, until Arsenal get back in the Champions League, then I wouldn't rule out anything, because that was why Arsene Wenger was moved on, because Arsenal fell out of the Champions League for the first and then the second season. It is because Arsenal are a multi-billion-pound organisation that need to make money, and the dent that they took by missing out on the Champions League and the dent that they continue to take financially every season by not being in it will force the Cronkies and Raul and the rest of them to make the decision if it needs to be made.
I disagree. I agree with you to a certain degree in the sense that not being in the Champions League, but the whole atmosphere around the club, empty seats after the Man City final in February, when I walked out with 20 minutes to go, and there was a lot of us that didn't turn back up at the stadium again. That was the final nail in Wenger's coffin. I'm a Wenger supporter. I think he overstayed his welcome, but I will always hold him in high esteem. But I think the club were very happy for him to go to the end of his contract, and if the fans didn't act like they did at the end of that season, I don't think they would have got rid of him. I think it was the Man City game, people walking out, and then the empty stadium. It was bad for brand Kroenke, brand Arsenal.
No, and so will not being in the Champions League.
I disagree a little bit, Fergus. I think that they suddenly saw the light with Arsene. I won't talk bad about Arsene, but you know my thoughts, and he overstayed his welcome by a good while. But Harry, I'm going back to agreeing with Harry now. I've had my fallout with Harry. I'm agreeing with Harry again now because it wasn't just missing out on the Champions League last season. It's as we've said just now, it's the manner in which we missed out on the Champions League. Those last half a dozen games were awful, absolutely awful. And I think if we get into the Champions League this year, there's no doubt that they will have sat down with Emery and they will have given Emery a development plan. It's what happens. At the end of this season, they'll sit down and they'll see how many boxes they tick in that plan and how many crosses they put in. And I think getting in the Champions League will be a massive tick. And then we'll see Emery move on. I think if we don't make Champions League this year, they'll be asking some serious questions.
It's literally the one of the only. I mean, the style of play, sure, the mitigating factors with injuries, sure, but it's literally the only measuring stick at this point that matters. Josh has talked about how he saw how coming off the pitch in Baku after the silver medals were given out, how he realized at that moment, probably a little too late, but at that moment. That things needed to change. If they don't make the Champions League this year, Emery will not be renewed. If they do,
agreed.
Simple as.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think
can't argue with that. And the bell was coming at a lovely time there because I'm going to have to call time.
It's like being in the bell end then?
The bell end, yeah.
It's a good pub.
It was, yeah, it is. I've given up trying to wrestle with my camera, so I'm sure as long as you can all hear me still, that's okay.
You've never looked so handsome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. You're supposed to be my buddy.
Your chin looks better on that one.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Says,
Yeah. I don't cover mine up with a beard though.
That's true.
Yeah.
Thank you. Cole, you're good, aren't you?
Thank you very much to Fergus and Trev for joining us. It's been absolutely brilliant, mate. Thank you very much, lads.
I hope we didn't take over too much.
Absolutely.
Cheers, Craig. Cheers,
that was
Craig.
the whole. You're welcome, mate. That was the whole reason, Fergus. You come in and you take it over.
Thanks
go and
much.
follow the lads on Twitter at Guns and Ribbons, and follow the podcast because Dan is on there as well. Who I'm just reading his comments now. Putting me off. Gooner Russ watching. Yeah, all right, Russ.
Actually, I want to give a shout out to Gunnar Ross and Dave Pearce. I said earlier about Essex. Gunnar Ross is only around the corner from me. I'm in Loughton, so I don't want to come around from Hainault and give me on my bearded chin.
Russ is such a lovely bloke. I love seeing him when I come over to London, but he's gotten some real negativity the last couple of weeks. I'm going to have a therapy session with him and a hug.
Everybody's waking up. Everybody's waking up, mate.
Yeah. Someone in the comments says, why do I always cut the show at crucial moments in conversation? Let it continue without him.
Leave you wanting more.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have to stop somewhere, and we could keep going all night otherwise. And when you get married and have kids, come back to me.
Craig, can I take a moment just to thank you very much for facilitating this for Same Old Arsenal and Guns and Yellow Ribbons, and I'd like to say that we are supporting Gooners versus Cancer as well, so you'll be getting my donation shortly as well, Mike.
Absolutely brilliant. It's our pleasure, Fergus. Absolutely no problem, mate. Mike, hope you enjoyed your time here again, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, letting me book myself on your show. And it turned out to be a great one. Fergus and Trev will certainly talk to you guys about a crossover, since I basically steal every idea that Craig has, including having a podcast. But it's been great. Nice spirited debate, disagreements, therapy, reuniting, supporting charity. So look, I mean, what more could you ask in a podcast?
Absolutely. Harry, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Poor old Harry. Thank you. Is it cold where you are, mate?
Mate, It is bloody freezing tonight, man. I'm Greek. I can't deal with this weather, man. I just come back from Cyprus, walking around in a vest and shorts, and now I'm wearing a tracksuit. Fuck's sake.
Trev's in cos.
Yeah.
Harry, the weather is lovely at the minute, mate. It's about 28, I think. I've got the door open. It's nice, yeah. Beautiful.
I'm on my way.
You're welcome, mate. Pop in.
Noticeable absentees. Obviously, Lee Judges flying home from Vegas this evening, and Dan, who is in Greece as well, I think. He's flown out today on holiday. Had a bit of an accident last week, but can tell you all that he's good, and he's gone.
Did you see his car?
I saw his car. I'll tell you what, it's a great advert for Vauxhall. That's all I'll say.
Jesus, he's a very lucky boy.
He's a very lucky boy. But I have to say, that car took it quite well, to be honest.
It did.
From the picture that he showed me. Yeah, just if anyone doesn't know, Dan had a bit of a car crash last week. That's why he wasn't on. He's
gone to a lot of lengths not to get on here, hasn't he? That's yes. 2 weeks in Greece in a car crash.
That's it. But, yeah, but he's all right, so that's good. Something else I want to plug as well is on Sunday. I'm very honoured to be asked to co-host a podcast with a relatively new channel, Sunny TV. So a few of you obviously know Sunny from Arsenal Fan TV. He likes to be interviewed there after the games, and he started up his own YouTube channel, and he's asked me to co-host a podcast with a few different people, and it's going to be about a general discussion about mental health and mental health awareness. Now, as some of you know, I hide no fact that I have suffered from depression and still suffer with anxiety today. Today I dealt with it. Tomorrow I'll have to deal with it again. When I go home to bed, I'll have to deal with it. It's something that's going to be with me for the rest of my life. It's something that I have to learn to deal with, and that I've had to teach myself how to deal with and live with. So on Sunday at 8:00, if you can all go over and follow Sunny, there's going to be a podcast discussing mental health, which I think is massively important. Some of you have seen the video that I did after I finished my 15 weeks of therapy, a video that got 65,000 views on Twitter. DMs coming at me from all over the place, from different people, from famous people to people that I'd never heard of before, men coming to me and talking to me about their problems, and then texting me a week later to say that thanks very much. They went to the doctors and they're on the way to recovery and this kind of stuff. So it was very, very humbling to get all that. So I'm very honoured that Sunny's asked me to co-host that podcast. So on Sunday evening at 8:00, go over to Sunny TV Unfiltered, and you'll see us talking about it. It's called, a lot of people in the chat saying, what's the channel called? It's called Sunny TV Unfiltered. And you can also follow Sunny on Twitter. So that's something I'm looking forward to Sunday. And if you're going to have a spare hour on Sunday, I'd really appreciate it if you came along and supported it. So Tuesday, is there an
Twitter is at Sunny_Arsenal.
At Sunny _
Arsenal. Sunny SONNY.
At Sunny _Arsenal. So there you go. Have we got a game next week?
Yeah, Watford.
Watford, is it? Okay.
Coming out of the new coach bounce, if there is such a thing.
Yeah, I thought there was a 2 week. For some reason, I thought the international break was on for 2 weeks.
It has been.
Just feels that way.
Oh yeah, no, it hasn't.
Yeah, it's about 10, 11 days.
There's one skipped weekend, but
one skipped weekend, but it's 2 weeks. So.
Oh yeah, you're dead right. Aren't you? Oh, I don't know what day it is, to be honest with you.
They've only had 2 wins since we played them and beat them 1-0 when Deeney got sent off because he lost his cojones.
Poor old Deeney.
Yeah.
Poor old Deeney. Anyway, thanks to everyone. Thanks to Fergus. Thanks to Trev. Thanks to Mike. And thanks to Harry. We'll see you next week. The judges will be back from his holiday. He'll probably be using that Johnson's holiday skin or that Dove to keep his tan for you all.
He'll be wearing a white t-shirt.
T-shirt,
Armani one, probably. You know the score.
Garmani.
Yeah, Garmani. We'll see you all next week. And until we do, thanks for watching. Thanks for staying with us. And up the Arsenal.